So I wanted to share a little bit today on my personal journey of having home births and why I'm choosing to do it again, in case you've been curious about home birth, in case you are just a home birth fan, or maybe if you're even a home birth skeptic. I welcome you here. Can talk about what I've learned through my 5 home births. Well, let me think. I've had 1 birth center birth and then 4 home births so far. And I am pregnant with my 6th baby and planning, Lord willing, to have another home birth. And so it's been a really beautiful process. Honestly, I really wouldn't want to give birth anywhere else, but I know other people feel differently. And so I want to share what it is that I love so much about home birth and why I've chosen that environment to be the place where I labor and bring my baby into this world. And so I hope it can be just really informational for you. We're just going to hang out while I do some home chores and while I just being mama at home. And I hope that you'll never see home birth the same after this video, that it'll give you some things to think about. And maybe if you're trying to figure out where you want to birth your baby, I'm not going to be here evangelizing for home birth. I certainly think that you can have a really beautiful birth somewhere else, in a birth center or in a hospital. Of course, there are some key decisions that you need to make. I actually have a free birth class that you should consider, going to check out. It's 5 key decisions that every mama should think about making if she wants to transform her whole birth experience. It's a lot of what I wished I'd known the first, second, and even third time that I didn't really figure out till the 4th and the 5th. So I want to save you a lot of pain by just imparting some of that to you. So that's a free link down for you below. And if you don't know me, my name is Lana. This is Girl Teach Me. I created this whole channel to just be a resource for new moms who are feeling overwhelmed and burnout and just like, wow, motherhood is a little bit different and a little harder than I thought. I just want this to be a safe place where you can come, learn, and grow, be challenged to be more intentional, and hopefully just walk away from every video with your life changed in some little way, give you some little action step to go and do. So if any of that resonates with you, I hope that you'll stay and hit subscribe. So let me tell you a little bit of my backstory. So for my whole life was pretty scared of birth and really had a view of birth as being something that we just kind of have to get through as women, and just something that's pretty horrible. That's what I saw in the movies. That's what I saw in the shows. So that's all I knew about birth. Everything really changed for me when I took a last minute elective class in my master's program that I really shouldn't have been led into. I wasn't a nutritional major, but I asked if I could take this master's nutrition class called maternal childhood nutrition. And the teacher just reluctantly was like, okay, if you want to take it. But it was such a transformational class. In that class, she opened my eyes to the wonders of breastfeeding. She opened my eyes to the miraculous normalcy of birth. She had us watch a documentary called The Business of Being Born, and I never saw birth the same. Honestly, I was scared to death to watch the birth in The Business of Being Born. There was a couple of births, and I just remember having the blanket up to my eyes, just so scared to see the birth, and then crying out of just awe and wonder and being humbled to the miraculousness of birth. And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted my birth to be different than the things I had seen in the movies. And so I just was ushered into this whole world of learning. I went down this rabbit hole of reading anime books and just really deciding that I wanted to have a different experience for myself, but I didn't really know what that looked like, and I didn't really know what decisions I needed to make. So when I lived in LA for my husband to go to school, I found myself pregnant. I had been married a year and a half, and my dear friend Carmen was like, where are you gonna give birth? And she had heard of this birth center that was about 45 minutes out. So I thought I'd go meet with the midwife there. And it just was wonderful. She scooped me up under her wing. Every time I went to the appointment, it was an hour of me just a million questions. I literally would come with a notepad with a million questions, and she would let me ask one after the other. And I had her whole attention for that hour, which the couple of OBGYN appointments I had to go to, because at the time in the state of California, an OBGYN has to kind of oversee the care. I never really saw the OBGYN. I maybe talked to a nurse practitioner for just a little while. I just felt like I didn't get any education. And so I saw such a stark difference in the prenatal care I was getting with a midwife, specifically a CPM midwife. There's different kinds of midwives, and the care I was getting at the OBGYN, which further confirmed that I was making the right decision. But after that birth center birth, I realized that I was just driving 45 minutes to give birth in a place that it wasn't much different than my home. It was really like a retrofitted old parsonage that had 2 rooms that looked like an Airbnb. All the equipment that they would bring to a home birth was there at the birth center. And so I learned that it was hard to get in the car and drive 45 minutes when I'm in active labor. And I actually got sent home because I wasn't far enough along. And so I had to go back. And then after giving birth, I had to then get in the car 3 hours after birth and drive home. So that was also not ideal. So my first home birth actually didn't even get to take place in my own home. I was living in somebody's guest house and they graciously allowed me to have my baby there, which was just so comical. But it was so nice after giving birth to crawl into my bed and go to sleep. And it was just, I realized that labor also went way faster when you don't have to get in a car and go anywhere. And also even though I was in somebody's guest house, I had been living there for a couple of months. So it felt like home to me. It felt safe to me. And I learned after that point, I was actually even talking to my midwife today because I'm pregnant with my 6th. And she was talking about the concoction of hormones that have to, come together for a woman to go into labor. And what she has uniquely seen is that it really helps for a woman to not have an audience. It really helps for her to be in her safe place, preferably in a dark environment where she can kind of focus on what she's doing. She doesn't have a lot of people coming in and out asking her for things. She's allowed to focus on her work of birthing. And so I thought that was so unique that helps birth progress. And when you're in labor, if you've never had a baby, you wouldn't know this, but it can be uncomfortable and it's not really something that you want to drag out forever. And so if we can have an environment that feels better, it's going to help everything move along at a better pace because our body knows what to do and our baby knows what to do, but our body feels a little tripped up when it doesn't get signals that it's safe and that it's in the place where birthing a baby would be best. And really we see this with animals. I mean, a lot of animals, they get away by themselves. They get alone. They get in a quiet, even dark place to birth their babies because, their predators could come. And so it's just ingrained in us to find this safe haven. For some people, a hospital feels safe for them. For me, personally, a hospital seems like a place you go when there's an emergency or somebody's really sick. And so for me, uniquely, I haven't, praise the Lord, been high risk. And so it's been pretty safe for me to have my babies at home. And one of the things I share in the free birth class is that it's so important, I think, to have the right birth team. I really wouldn't recommend home birth if you don't feel good about your birth team. If you have reservations about your midwife, if you have reservations about the safety, you need to get those resolved, right? Because it's important for us to feel safe, for our brain to feel safe. And so at home, I've really loved the feeling of safety. I've really loved the feeling of it's my inner sanctum, giving birth in my room. It's like my secret garden. It's my sanctuary. And of course I want to bring my baby into that spot. And, just feeling like I can go about my work in the home as long as I can. I actually did a video for my last birth where I'm just homemaking at home as long as I can. And I think what's nice about that is it just allows us to not give birth or labor the focus until we need to. It allowed me to think about other things. And actually Amish women do this. When they think that they're in labor, they get about the business of making bread because it has to rise and, there's steps they have to do. They'll start bread because it's going to keep them on their feet. It's going to keep them busy. And it's not like you're going to give all of your focus to birth. It doesn't demand all of our attention all the time until we're getting towards the end. And I think that's a mistake I actually made with my first I was like, oh my gosh, everything's starting and we need to go to the birth center right away. And really, I feel like it drug out much longer and I got sent home because I just wasn't ready, So that's another thing that's really nice about home birth is you can just go about your business. You can just go about the things and then you can keep talking to the midwife. And as you get closer, she can kind of tell by the way you're breathing and the way you're talking if you're getting close. But let's say you have a little bit of labor that happens and then it slows way down. Well, you're not stuck at the hospital then. You're not stuck on a timeline of getting induced. You can get a good night's rest and labor might pick back up the next day. Another thing I've loved about home birth is, after I've given birth, they change my sheets and I crawl into a clean, cozy bed with my baby. And then after, everything's good. They've checked out the baby's breastfed. Then really the midwife just leaves. She leaves. If it's really late, she might sleep on the couch, but you go to sleep. And that first stretch of sleep is that the baby's going to have, it's a pretty long one. They're pretty exhausted from labor, and they're usually going to sleep for like, 3 to 5 hour stretch that first time. And that's really a beautiful time to bond, but also to catch up a little bit of rest, because they're going to be up around the clock, feeding after that point. But they're tired from labor generally, and you're tired. And so just being home for that stretch, not having nurses come in and check and get vitals and get all the things, and not trying to separate baby from mama, I think is so helpful. I know there's hospital protocols, and I know that sometimes it calls for it, but the amount of separation between mom and baby that happens in the hospital for sometimes really unnecessary reasons, I think is absolutely heartbreaking, because baby needs mama. They need to be on the boob. They need your germs, our comfort. They need us. We're their environment. And so I like to try to set myself up to be in an environment where the likelihood of me being separated from my baby is just way down. But there's going to be skeptics. There's going to be some people that are like, well, what if this goes wrong? And what if that goes wrong? That's really where I lean in on the wisdom and intuition of my midwife. I generally try to find pretty seasoned midwives. I've been very blessed. I've had 3 different midwives, and they've all been really seasoned midwives. And, if they were to tell me, Lana, it's time to transport, I would trust them and I would do it. But also, spending that hour of prenatal time. Today, I was literally with my midwife for an hour and a half. I love birth. We love talking about birth. I was her last appointment of the day, and I'm just picking her brain and talking with her, and she's sharing her wisdom with me. And so, 6 babies worth of appointments like that. I have that trust relationship with her that also helps labor progress, because it's not a random provider walking in the door, but also she's really checking in on me. I'm peeing in a cup. We're doing a strip. She's checking all the things. She's talking to me about the swelling in my legs and how I need to be moving multiple times a day. And she's making sure I'm on certain supplements. And she's just checking in to make sure I'm having a really, really healthy pregnancy. And she's imparting different tips and tricks and things that can only come when you sit down and talk to somebody for an hour, and getting that kind of prenatal care really helps you avoid high risk situations. It doesn't eliminate it, but it helps you avoid it, because having a healthy pregnancy can help lead to a healthy birth. But if we're not getting that education, if we're not getting that support, if somebody's not really checking in on us and educating us, then our likelihood of high risk situations goes up. And so I think, having a home birth kind of goes hand in hand with having a really good midwife. Now, some people free birth. I actually talked about a little bit about this on the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast with Lisa Bass. I love her. I mean, she's just one of the best in the whole YouTube world, but she is about to have her 9th baby. And so we talked about birth. That's a great podcast to go check out. I mean, she is such a wealth of wisdom. I mean, right? Like, she's had 8 births and prepping for her 9th. But she asked the question, like, would you ever recommend free birth? And she has some friends who've done free birth. I personally wouldn't. I don't want to have to be in the frontal part of my brain making hard decisions about birth. I want to be in the relaxed part of my brain where I'm not thinking about all the things, and I'm allowed to just free flow through birth and relax and not have to make a bunch of decisions. And I feel so taken care of. And actually, I feel mothered through birth when I have a really, educated, seasoned midwife there. I don't want her there the whole time I'm laboring. I only want her to come in when I really need her. And so for me, she's waiting until I am in pretty active labor. And so the last time she was here, she was really only at my house for like maybe an hour to an hour and a half before I actually had the baby. And that was pretty intentional, because I wanted to go about my business as long as I could. And like I said, I think that's a huge positive of home birth, is it allows us to ignore labor as long as we can until it demands all of our attention. And then when it demands all of our attention, then I go and I get in the shower and let the water hit my back. And then, I kind of retreat to my room and turn on worship music, and I light some candles, and I try not to get actually into the warm birth tub until it's really time to push, because I feel like sometimes that can slow labor down. But it's just that ambiance and that environment that I'm getting to have more control over. It's another reason I really, really love home birth. Also, home birth is so much less expensive generally. Now, I know sometimes that your insurance won't cover home birth. It doesn't particularly cover it for mine. I'm having to pay out of pocket, but just because you have insurance doesn't mean it's going to cover all of your birth, especially if there's lots of interventions and things like that. And so it's actually been a lot more economical. I get better prenatal care with a CPM midwife, and my birth is less expensive. My prenatal care and my birth, it's all in one. And so it's been a lot more economical, and then I'm not having to get discharged from the hospital. I am in my home, which is so nice. I'm eating my own food. I'm getting rest. I can stay in my PJs. And so I've just really loved home birth. I really think that a lot of women, it's a stretch for them, right? It would have been a stretch for my husband. He's very medically minded. He's a physical therapist. And so for him, a home birth was too much of a stretch at the beginning. And he really wanted me to kind of start with a birth center. That's what he was more comfortable with. And I don't know that I was ready for home birth the first time, but like I said, we both quickly saw that we were simply driving to a home birth, essentially, but we didn't feel as comfortable there. And then we had to basically pack up and drive home at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night after having a baby. And so I really don't have any encouragement to you, because I would never dream of telling another mom, what she should hope for her birth. I think that's such a personal decision, but I think it's not wise to make decisions out of fear and what ifs. I think we do the very best we can to plan and prepare, hire the very best team we can. I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that you are not helpless to the care provider that you have. It's an interview process. It's a business like any other. And so, we need to hire the right people. We wouldn't just hire. If you think about the other positions in your life that you would vet somebody for, why are we not vetting these birth workers, right? We need to make sure that if we want to have a certain kind of birth, that is their standard, that is their normal. We do not want to be their exception or to the rule. We want to be their standard. And so just to say, if there is some part of you that wants a different kind of birth experience, my challenge to you is why not? Why are we thinking that it can't be us? Maybe it's not going to be. Like I said, birth is wild, but sometimes I think we can self-sabotage and have limiting mindsets that say, oh, that's for somebody else, but that's not for me. And I'd maybe just push back and say, why not? Why not? Maybe if you got the right care provider on board and you got the right education, maybe your whole birth experience could be different. So that's why I've loved home birth. I hope it's been insightful for you. If you've had a home birth, I would love for you to share down below. What have you loved about your home birth? What led you to the decision to have a home birth? What do you wish more women knew about home birth? Please drop all that down below. You guys are a wealth of wisdom, and I love hearing from y'all. I have so many birth and pregnancy videos here on this channel, so I hope you'll go check those out. And remember, that free birth class link is down below. I think it's a perfect extension of what I'm talking about, so go check that out if you happen to be pregnant, and I'll see you again in the next video.
It's so unnecessary dwelling about the past, 'cause I know that God is good. He led me to where I'm at. Sometimes I feel like giving up, you're giving in, but everything happens for a reason. It won't always be blue skies ahead. Sometimes you might need a helping hand, just like iron sharpens iron, making me stronger, calling me higher. When we come together, just like iron sharpens iron, making us stronger, calling us higher. When we're helping each other, we're growing together.